I'm about bursting with excitement today. I'm going to tell you folks that first of all, as you well know, tomorrow is Election Day. Election Day 2020, thank goodness, is finally here or almost here. In the first five today, I just really want to focus in on what we've been treated to this entire election cycle, which kind of began the day after President Trump won in 2016, and what the voters are seeing. What are the voters looking at now, fact versus fiction? So we'll start with this. The entire Democrat campaign in 2020 was run on the theme, we hate Trump and you should too. That was pretty much the message of the Democrat Party. We hate Trump and you should too. And the American people sitting back watching what's actually happened in the 4 years under President Trump versus the spin of the Democrat media mob. And the Democrats have tried to convince America that the entire COVID problem in America was Trump's fault. That somehow if we'd only had a brilliant Democrat, had Hillary. In fact, Hillary said something about, if I'd been there, women know how to handle these things. Women would have handled this crisis better. I would have handled it better. This is a serious commentary by she who would have been president. But here we are, day before Election Day. I'm going to make a prediction number one. Trump is going to win in a landslide. That's my first prediction. Trump will win by a landslide. I think he will certainly hold on to the Senate, likely take back the House. And the reason I say all those things is because nothing the Democrat Party has said in this entire election cycle gave any sane or intelligent person a reason to vote Democrat. Nothing they've said, nothing they've done. Giving the American voters no reason to get out there and fight for Biden. In fact, when you ask people, Biden supporters, why they're supporting him, virtually all of them give a litany of what they can't stand about Trump. Some complain about Trump. So, to start with, I have a few clips I sent. Now, Matt the Wonderful is back, so life is back to normal, even though his substitute wonderful producer, Derek, was also great. But Matt is back. I want to play just a series of clips. And I resisted this almost the entire election season. Tomorrow's Election Day. I resisted doing this. But just so you see who the Democrats are telling America, this guy should run the country, I want to play a few clips featuring Joe Biden, who would like to be president of the United States of America. So we just have a bunch of them in a row. The first one was in a text put out by Eddie Zipperer. And this one you may have heard over the weekend, but this was a new word that Joe Biden made up.
I'll lead an effective strategy to mobilize true international effort to pressure.
Okay, I'm sorry, but obviously who knows what he's trying to say. And even Biden, as he continued, he didn't say, wow, I said that too fast. What I meant to say was, he's just blathering. So you have him making up a word. Thank goodness he's going to have an effective strategy to mobilize whatever the heck it was. Then we have Biden talking about his running mate, Kamala, and her spouse. Kamala's spouse, here's Biden.
270. But my wife, Jill, as you know, and Doug Emhoff, Kamala's wife are there. Kamala will be back later this week, I think on Friday.
Kamala's wife, yeah, okay. So, he gets confused. And I resisted for a variety of reasons doing these in the election cycle. I don't know, I'm just kind of effusive today. I think we are looking at a Trump landslide. And I'm going to talk about why. And we're talking very, very serious issues today, very serious issues. But in the first five, I want to really lay out for you what the Democrats have tried to tell America is worth voting for. So next clip we have Joe Biden talking. He's talking with Jill sitting by him, his wife Jill sitting by him, explaining who he's running against.
This is the most consequential, not because I'm running, but because who I'm running against. This is the most consequential election in a long, long, long time. And the character of the country, in my view, is literally on the ballot. What kind of country we're going to be. 4 more years of George, he going to find ourselves in a position where if Trump gets elected, we're going to be in a different world. And
okay.
And so
seriously, 4 more years of George W. or somebody. I don't know who I'm running against. Here's another one. Can't remember what he is running for. Here's Joe Biden.
We have to come together. That's why I'm running. I'm running as a proud Democrat for the Senate.
Or something. He's running for something, maybe the Senate. And I think this is the last one. Yeah, the last one. And this is Joe Biden discussing the race that he and Barack Obama were in when Biden was vice president in 2012.
You may remember I got in trouble when we were running against the senator who was a Mormon, the governor, okay? And I took him on.
Yeah, couldn't remember his name, Mitt Romney. Anyway, I put those up to say, I truly think it is cruel that Jill Biden and other Democrats around Joe Biden do not tell him, you can't handle the job, Joe. I'm sorry, you can't be doing this. But the Democrats have decided that leaving Joe in is okay because once he's out of there, they're going to have Kamala Harris. Joe is not mentally fit. Everyone understands that, including Jill Biden and everyone around them. Going to have Kamala Harris, and I'm going to talk about who she really is in the next segment. But I want to wrap up just the first five by making a couple of observations, other kind of major issues, major observations about where we are in 2020, the day before Election Day. Number one, the massive strategy of the Democrat Party in all of 2020 was to scare Americans to death about COVID, somehow blame President Trump for a virus that came from China. The Democrats are so politically correct, you can't call it the Chinese virus. You can't blame the Chinese, although the Chinese Communist Party itself is certainly at fault. But you can blame Trump, even though, as I've laid out many times on the show, it was Trump calling for stop people coming to America from China. He put the first restrictions in place at the time that Joe Biden is calling him a xenophobe, and Kamala Harris was calling it racist. All the Democrat elites mocking him. You had Nancy Pelosi in the streets of Chinatown in San Francisco, and I think it was late February, walking arm in arm with Chinese citizens who regularly in that Chinatown area fly back and forth to China, saying China, and this is Nancy Pelosi trying to encourage people, come on out, there's no danger here, come on out, we're having a great time. And somehow it's all Trump's fault. But the entire strategy of the Democrat Party was to make America so afraid of COVID, to blame Trump, which is falling apart, their effort to blame Trump, except among their most loyal and simple-minded followers, for a variety of reasons. Number one, America saw that President Trump actually contracted coronavirus, and he spent whatever it was, 3 or 4 days in the hospital, quickly recovered, came back, robust. He's doing, I think it's like 14 campaign stops in the final 3 days of the campaign, not stopping like land on the ground, wave to the masses, stopping, holding massive rallies in swing states all over the country, people clamoring to get in. And you have, by contrast, Joe Biden, even when Barack Obama shows up to be with him, cannot get 12 people to stand still in a cornfield. I mean, no one cares what Joe Biden is saying. Joe Biden isn't the candidate. The candidate is, I'm not Trump. That's what the Democrats are running. But back to what is happening this election cycle. The Democrats banked on Americans staying afraid of COVID. They're less and less afraid all the time. The more Americans become familiar and aware of all the treatments that doctors around the country are saying are working, are effective, and actually helping people, curing them of COVID. You have hydroxychloroquine, you have inhaled budesonide, you have remdesivir, you have all the other drug names that are out there. And doctors around the country banding together saying, this is working just fine. This is working great. People are getting better. We don't have to be frozen in our homes. We don't have to be shut down. We can be normal in America. We certainly don't need masks. But you had the Democrats banking on COVID, and they took that banking on the fear of COVID into the next phase of their plot against America in this 2020 election, which was to switch over to mail-in ballots and tell the American people, it's so dangerous out there, you really shouldn't even go to the grocery store. Everyone should be afraid to even move. Everyone should be fearing. So you had this plot, this scheme the Dems thought up of saying, we got to do mail-in ballots, that's it. The danger of coronavirus means everybody has to do a mail-in ballot. So they did this massive push. Fortunately for America, many Americans are awake saying, wait a minute, this is sounding like you're setting up cheating. This is sounding fraudulent here. We're not too sure we like this idea that you're just going to mail out unsolicited millions of mail-in ballots. Well, Democrats counted on that scheme. And what has happened, because in several states, astute people were saying, wait a minute, this doesn't sound legal, this doesn't sound right. So now there have been a total of 14 court cases filed challenging the need for this massive and in many states, unlawful issuance of mail-in ballots to people who didn't ask for them. Obviously, just a massive ploy set up by the Democrats. And in those cases, of those 14 cases, the GOP has won 11 of them, stopping this ridiculous effort to cheat, this transparent effort to cheat, and stopping this change in the laws. Well, given COVID, everything's changed. So mail-in ballots, they get to just like stream in whenever they finally stream in, and then we'll just count them. Doesn't matter how long it is after Election Day. Doesn't matter, it's okay. We'll just keep bringing them in, keep counting them. And courts saying, no, you can't just count forever. You can't just let ballots get rolling in. And of the other 3 cases that the Republicans have not yet won, they appear, most or all of them, headed to the Supreme Court, which now has, hopefully, an actual law-abiding majority, because we have Amy Coney Barrett sitting on the court. So you have the Democrat strategy for 2020, demonize Trump over coronavirus, not flying. The more informed you are, the more ridiculous you recognize the Democrat policies are. And then the effort to use the coronavirus scare to say to Americans, everything's a mail-in ballot now, and the court saying, no, actually, you can't play that game with us. I will tell you that the energy Trump shows also at these rallies is just simply extraordinary. I mean, I heard this secondhand, so I don't know if this is an accurate quote, but Laura Ingraham traveled with him on some step of one of his phase of one of his campaign trips, and commented afterwards, I cannot believe the energy of that man. I'm exhausted. And she'd gone just one segment or wherever she did. The guy is full of energy, full of passion, full of love for America. And I'll tell you a couple of things in wrapping up this first 5. We are at the place where the total number of people who've already voted early is 94 million people. 94 million. That is more, that's over 2/3 of the entire turnout in 2016. 2/3, this is over 2/3 of the 2016 turnout in the great state of Texas, where I live. The early voting is over. So it ended last Friday, so tomorrow is Election Day. But in Texas, the number of people who early voted, as of now, already exceeds the entire vote turnout of 2016. Already exceeds that. So I'm getting at the point, it's really interesting. I think that there are many people who say, well, this is great, or people trying to argue this is great for Biden because everyone knows that Democrats use early voting, Republicans vote on Election Day. There's going to be this massive effort of the early voting. It's probably mostly for Biden. People, I don't think so. Again, back to my starting point, today's first 5. The Democrats have given Americans no reason to vote for them. They've given them no reason. There's no logic. There's no enticing message. There's no positive, we love America, we want to stand up for America. The entire messaging of this Democrat Party, they counted on, we hate Trump and you should too. And more Americans realize, even if they didn't support him in the primary, even if they didn't support him in the throughout his first year or 2 in office, they finally see President Trump has brought about a fabulous economy, lifting up all Americans, a famous rising tide lifting all boats, including obviously formerly jobless Americans, African Americans, Asian Americans, Hispanic Americans, women. The economy was floating along until the CCP virus, the Chinese Communist Party virus, came along. Not Trump's fault, and everyone's finally, I mean, I think Biden doesn't even realize when he's talking how lame he sounds to keep claiming that Trump is the fault of the virus. He just sounds, well, he sounds out of it, kind of similar to the many other ways he sounds out of it. But to wrap up this first 5, I am effusive today. I am fully aware of all of the polls. I am fully aware that even the Wall Street Journal predicts, I don't think Trump can win this. Going to win it in a landslide, people. Now, I will say, and what we're going to focus on tomorrow in the show, is the Democrats have a lot of plans in mind if the election is not settled clearly on election night. Many radical leftist anti-American groups are already talking about the violence they will inflict on America's cities until they get rid of Trump. They believe, and this is a problem the Democrats have of their own making, they have, I don't even know what the right word is, impressed. They have convinced ignorant people that Biden is actually appealing and he's going to be our guy and he's going to win and the polls are right. And so people on the left, ignorant leftists, think that if Trump wins, it couldn't possibly be true. It must be due to cheating. The left is planning, at least talking about, major violence in the American cities. We'll talk more about those groups tomorrow and who they are, but this is all given their assumption that it'll be unsettled on election night, and that there'll be millions and millions of uncounted ballots just waiting to be, doctored up in some dark back room of the Democrat Party headquarters in states around this country and quick sent in as mail-in ballots. I mean, this is what you can picture the left doing. This is why there was such frustration, concern, outrage over this obvious, transparent scheme of the Democrats to come up with mail-in ballots as a vital need this time because of COVID. So I'm wrapping up the first five, which I keep saying I'm going to do, but I am effusive. I just actually think I think we're headed for a Trump landslide, and I think we're headed for and I don't say that just because Biden is a poor candidate. I say that because the malicious, nefarious, ugly, unjustified accusations and criticisms of President Trump that the Democrat media mob have been piling on for 4 years, the American people have been watching. They actually have been watching what the Democrat media mob has tried to do to President Trump. They know Trump created a great economy. Can't refute that. They know Trump did incredibly important peace deals in the Middle East, never done by all the predecessors who talk about Middle East peace. They watched Trump do what the Israelis wanted him to do and to move the American embassy in Israel to Jerusalem, the capital. They watched Trump renegotiate trade deals to make things fairer for America. They watched Trump bring back jobs because he cured the problem of the unfair trade deals that and other regulations that caused businesses to ship their manufacturing overseas someplace, brought those jobs back home. Americans can see Trump has done a great job. That's what they can see. And they're waiting to hear the message from the Democrats, and all it is we hate Trump and you should too. It's not flying anymore. Trump by a landslide, in my opinion. And that, my very fine friends, is today's First Five.